You actually thought I'd say yes to this? Bella sneered, her manicured fingers flicking the modest silver promise ring across the sticky table of the daily grind. It spun wobbly before dying with a pathetic clink right in front of Liam. Liam's eyes widened, the hurt cracking through his stoic expression as he gripped the empty velvet box until his knuckles turned white. He looked down at his sawdust-covered flannel shirt, then back at her, his voice trembling. Bella, it's not about the price tag. It's about commitment. I'm building something real here. Real? Bella laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that made the barista flinch. She stood up, aggressively smoothing her designer knockoff dress. Real is a seven-figure bank account, Liam. Real is the guy waiting for me outside in the Italian sports car, not a dusty carpenter who counts coupons for a living. Don't call me until you can actually afford me. The door to the daily grind slammed shut, the bell jingling above Bella's head like a mockery of the moment. She didn't look back. She marched toward the curb, where a candy apple red convertible idled aggressively, the engine purring with a deep, expensive growl. Chad sat behind the wheel, tapping furiously on his phone, his wrist adorned with a gold watch that caught the harsh LA sunlight. He didn't open the door for her. He didn't have to. In Bella's eyes, his bank balance was chivalry enough. She slid into the passenger seat, the smell of premium leather and heavy cologne instantly suffocating the scent of Liam's sawdust and coffee. Took you long enough, Chad grunted, not looking up from his screen. I've got reservations at l'Orangerie in 20. Don't tell me you were crying over the peasant. Bella pulled down the visor mirror, checking her lipstick with practiced indifference. Please. I was just letting him down gently. He actually pulled out a silver ring. Silver, Chad, like I'm some high schooler. Chad threw his head back and laughed, revving the engine until pedestrians glared. Tragic. You belong in diamonds, babe. Stick with me, and you'll never touch silver again. As he peeled away, leaving tire marks on the asphalt, Bella snapped a selfie, the caption reading, "Out with the old, in with the gold." Inside the coffee shop, the atmosphere was stifling. Liam remained frozen, the cheap table wobbling under his grip. He picked up the rejected ring. It wasn't just metal, he had hand-carved the mold himself. He stood up, brushing the wood shavings from his flannel, the costume he wore to filter out the gold diggers. He walked to the counter, paid for both untouched coffees, and stepped outside. His phone buzzes. Mr. Henderson? The voice on the other end crackled. The contractors are waiting at the Hilltop site. They need approval on the infinity pool specs. Liam took a deep breath, watching the red dot of Chad's car disappear into traffic. I'm on my way, he said, his voice hardening, and tell them to prep the master wing. I'm moving into the mansion myself. He unlocked his beat-up truck, sitting on a portfolio of blueprints worth millions. Bella wanted a kingdom, but she just exiled herself from the king. 2 hours later, the ambiance inside l'Orangerie was thick enough to cut with a steak knife, yet the only thing being sliced was Bella's dignity. The restaurant was a cathedral of glass and candlelight, filled with the hushed whispers of the city's elite. Bella sat stiffly in her chair, her smile plastered on like a mask that was beginning to crack at the edges. Across from her, Chad wasn't even looking at her. He was engrossed in a loud, obnoxious FaceTime call, holding his phone up high and panning it around the room to show off the decor to whoever was on the other end. Yeah, bro, top shelf only. You know how I roll, Chad bellowed, his voice echoing uncomfortably in the refined silence. A nearby couple glared, But Chad didn't notice, or rather, he didn't care. He snapped his fingers at a passing waiter without making eye contact. "Refill, Pellegrino, and make it snappy." Bella shifted in her seat, feeling the heat rising in her cheeks. "Chad, maybe keep it down. People are staring." Chad finally lowered the phone, his eyes narrowing with a mix of amusement and disdain. "Let them stare, babe. They're just trying to figure out how someone like me landed someone like you. Don't be insecure. It's not a good look on you." He reached across the table, not to hold her hand, but to grab the breadbasket, stuffing a roll into his mouth while crumbs fell onto his silk lapel. The waiter arrived with the check, placing it discreetly on the table in a leather folder. Bella considered. As the transaction processed, Chad was already standing up, checking his reflection in a spoon. "Hurry up, I want to show you the project before it gets too dark." The skeleton of a modern masterpiece stood against the night sky, steel beams and glass reflecting the moonlight. A large sign read, "Henderson Architecture, Private Property." Chad ignored the no trespassing sign and gunned the convertible through the open gate, kicking up dust. He parked haphazardly near a pile of lumber. "Welcome home, baby," he announced, spreading his arms wide as if he owned the very air they breathed. Bella stepped out, her heels sinking into the soft dirt. It was magnificent. This was the life she wanted. This was the dream Liam could never give her. But as they walked toward the main structure, movement caught her eye. Under the harsh glare of a halogen work light, a solitary figure was kneeling on the ground, measuring a wooden frame. The figure stood up, wiping sweat from his brow with a dirty flannel sleeve. It was Liam. Bella froze, her heart hammered against her ribs. What was he doing here? Stalking her, trying to win her back? Or worse, was he working here as a laborer? Chad spotted him and let out a bark of laughter. "Well, look who it is. The silver ring peasant. What are you doing on my property, Sawdust? Did you follow us here to beg for a second chance?" Liam didn't shout. He didn't get angry. He just stood there, holding a roll of blueprints, looking from Chad to Bella with a gaze so intense it felt like a physical weight. "I'm working," Liam said simply, his voice calm but possessing a dangerous undercurrent. "Someone has to make sure the foundation doesn't collapse." Bella felt a surge of irrational anger. Seeing Liam here, in his dirty work clothes, ruined her fantasy. He was a reminder of the mediocrity she was trying to escape. She needed to prove to Chad and to herself that she belonged in this world of wealth, not back in the coffee shop. She stepped forward, her voice dripping with venom. "Liam, seriously? You're following me to my boyfriend's future house. This is pathetic. If you needed money that bad, you could have just asked." Bella opened her purse again. She pulled out a crumpled $20 bill, her last bit of cash, and walked up to Liam. She shoved the bill into the front pocket of his flannel shirt. "Here," Bella sneered, her voice shaking slightly as she tried to maintain the facade. "For your gas money. Now get out of here before Chad calls security. We don't want the help cluttering up the view." Chad howled with laughter, clapping his hands. "That's my girl. Tell him, Bella. Know your place, woodchuck." Liam looked down at the $20 bill sticking out of his pocket. He didn't touch it. He slowly raised his eyes to meet Bella's. There was no love left in them, only a cold, clinical disappointment. He looked at her not like a woman he once loved, but like a structural flaw in a building, something that needed to be removed before it brought the whole house down. Liam didn't throw the money back. He didn't scream. He simply held the crumpled note between two calloused fingers, staring at it as if it were a foreign object. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until the sudden chirp of a siren shattered the night. Blinding red and blue lights washed over the skeleton of the mansion, turning Chad's arrogant grin into a mask of pure terror. 2 police officers stepped out of a cruiser that had pulled up silently behind the convertible. "Step away from the vehicle," one officer commanded, hand on his holster. "Babe, tell them," Chad stammered, backing away, his flashy persona evaporating instantly. "Tell them it's my car." "It's reported stolen from a rental lot at Lax," the officer barked, grabbing Chad's wrist and slamming him against the hood. "Along with 3 maxed-out credit cards in your name reported for fraud." Bella felt the blood drain from her face. Fraud? Stolen? She looked at Chad, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "But the crypto, the millions." "There is no crypto," Chad screamed, as the handcuffs clicked, his voice cracking with desperation. "I'm broke, okay? I needed a free dinner and someone dumb enough to let me crash at their place. You were just an easy mark, Bella, a shallow gold-digging mark." The words carved out Bella's insides. She had spent her rent money, her life savings, buying dinner for a con man, all to impress him. She stood frozen as they shoved Chad into the squad car. The silence returned, heavier now. She was alone, truly alone. She turned to Liam, tears burning tracks through her foundation. "Liam, I didn't know. He tricked me." Liam turned his back to her, walking over to the large project sign. With a sharp tug, he ripped off the plastic covering the bottom corner. The name was etched in bold steel, lead architect and owner, Liam Henderson. Bella gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "I wasn't the help, Bella," Liam said, his voice hollow, devoid of the warmth she used to take for granted. He gestured to the sprawling mansion. "I was the client. I designed every inch of this place with you in mind. The kitchen you wanted, the closet space. I stayed in that small apartment and saved every penny to build us a future. Wore the cheap clothes to make sure you loved me, not this." He let the $20 bill flutter from his hand. It landed in the dirt at her feet, right next to her expensive dust-covered heels. "You just tried to pay me off to leave my own home," Liam whispered, walking past her toward his truck without a backward glance. "Keep the 20, Bella. You look like you need it more than I do." As Liam's truck taillights faded into the darkness, Bella collapsed onto the cold concrete foundation of the dream house that was never going to be hers. She clutched the dirty $20 bill to her chest and screamed, the sound echoing endlessly into the empty Hollywood hills. The scream faded into the night, but the silence that followed would last much longer. 2 months later, the setting sun cast long, melancholic shadows inside the daily grind. The air didn't smell like luxury perfume anymore. It smelled of burnt espresso and stale pastries. Bella was on her hands and knees, scrubbing a sticky puddle of caramel syrup off the linoleum floor. Her designer dress was gone, replaced by a stained, oversized brown apron. Her manicured nails were chipped and broken. "Mr. Spot," a harsh voice barked from above. Bella flinched, looking up at Rick, the coffee shop's manager. He was a petty tyrant who seemed to delight in her downfall. "I'm cleaning it, Rick. Please, my back hurts." "I don't pay you to have a back," Rick sneered, tapping his watch. "I pay you to clean. And if you're late on your shift again, don't bother coming back. I know you need this paycheck since you got evicted from that fancy apartment." Bella bit her lip, holding back tears. It was the humiliating truth. After Chad's arrest, the police had seized everything bought with the stolen credit cards. She had nothing. The bell above the door chimed, signaling a customer. Bella hastily wiped her hands on her apron and stood up, plastering on a fake customer service smile. "Welcome to the Daily Gur." The words died in her throat. Standing at the counter wasn't just a customer. It was Liam, but he didn't look like the construction worker she had mocked. He was wearing a tailored navy suit that screamed quiet luxury. He held a rolled-up set of blueprints under one arm, radiating an aura of success and stability that Chad had only ever pretended to have. Liam looked up from his phone, and his eyes locked onto hers. For a second, Bella's heart leaped. Maybe he would save her. Maybe he would see how far she'd fallen and take pity. "Liam," she breathed, stepping around the counter, her voice trembling with a desperate hope. "Liam, it's me. I've missed you so much. Look at me. I'm working. I'm humble now. Doesn't that count for something?" Before Liam could speak, Rick rushed out from the back office, his demeanor shifting instantly from bully to bootlicker. "Mr. Henderson!" Rick practically bowed, shoving Bella aside with his shoulder. "I didn't know you were stopping by today. We have the renovation estimates ready for your review." Bella froze, her mind spinning. "Mr. Henderson? Renovation?" Liam didn't look at Bella. He looked at Rick, his expression calm and authoritative. "I'm just here to inspect the property, Rick. As the new owner of this building, I need to make sure my investments are being maintained properly." The shock hit Bella like a physical slap. Liam wasn't just an architect. He had bought the building. He was her landlord. He was her boss's boss. "Liam," Bella choked out, tears finally spilling over. "You own this place. Please, you have to help me. Rick treats me like garbage. I'm barely surviving. We were in love once." Liam finally turned to her. His gaze wasn't angry. It was indifferent. It was the look you give a stranger you briefly passed on the street. "We weren't in love, Bella," Liam said softly, his voice carrying through the silent shop so every customer could hear. "I was in love. You were in love with a lifestyle." He pulled a crisp $100 bill from his wallet, not a crumpled 20, and placed it gently on the counter. "Rick," Liam said, turning back to the manager, "I want everyone on the staff to get a raise starting next month, except for the staff that insults the customers." He looked back at Bella one last time. "And Bella, keep the change. It looks like you finally got a job that matches your values, serving people with actual money." Liam turned and walked out the door, the bell chiming a final cheerful farewell. Bella stood paralyzed in the center of the shop, the $100 bill sitting on the counter like a tombstone, as the customers watched the girl who wanted everything end up with absolutely nothing. The door swung shut, the cheerful chime fading into a suffocating silence that felt louder than any scream. Bella stared at the crisp banknote on the counter. The face of Benjamin Franklin seemed to mock her, a paper symbol of the happiness she thought she could buy. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, not out of greed, but out of sheer hollow desperation. The bill felt heavy, heavier than the designer bags she used to flaunt, heavier than the fake gold jewelry Chad had draped around her neck. Around her, the whispers of customers weren't about her beauty or style anymore. They were pitied murmurs about the girl who traded a diamond for a piece of glass. She collapsed onto a stool, burying her face in her hands. The bitter smell of burnt coffee clung to her skin, a permanent reminder of where superficiality leads. She had spent her life filtering photos to look perfect, only to realize she had filtered out the only person who was real. Liam had built a foundation. She had only built a facade, and now that facade had crumbled, leaving her exposed in the wreckage of her own choices. Bella learned too late that while you can put a price tag on a lifestyle, you can never buy loyalty. She chased the appearance of wealth and lost the reality of love. So remember, don't choose the person who has the most. Choose the person who loves you the most. True wealth isn't found in your bank account, but in the heart of someone who would never leave your side.